This video is supported by Roket Railways for all your model railway needs. Please check the link in the description below. Hello and welcome back to Galgormhall for the next instalment of the Gillingham signal box build. Before I take you over and show you what I've been up to this time round, I just wanted to pause a wee minute and say a huge thank you to every single one of you for your support this past year. Not only have you supported me on YouTube, but you've also supported me through my Facebook page, and there have been those of you who have reached out and spoken to me either in person, via message or via email, either to say thank you or to ask for advice, help, whatever it might have been. But every single one of those contacts has been really valued, and I've built new friendships up in this past year as a result of it. But your support of this channel is really important to me. It inspires me to push ahead and to produce more videos for you, because I do believe that many of you do get something out of them, and that it feels incredible to me that there are so many people out there that value this channel for the work that I do. So like I say, I just want to say thank you for that support. The only other thing I want to say is have a very Merry Christmas. It's that time of year again when this video is being produced. Christmas is literally round the corner, and I hope every single one of you have a great one. A Happy New Year too, and I will be back next year with many more videos for you. And until then, take care and I'll see you soon. Bye bye. Okay, so with lots of little things I would like to get done this week on the signal box, and if all goes well, hopefully we can actually get the thing finished or very close to it. First off, as I mentioned at the end of the last episode, I wanted to look at the interior. Now, the interior is going to be a very basic job, and I am going to be using the Ratio 553 signal box interior kit. It actually replicates quite well the box or the controls, etc., that were inside of this box here, so it'll work perfectly well. What I'll do is I'll go away and I'll make those kits up away from the workbench here, and then it'll just be a matter of popping them back in. What I really want to do in this video is to look at the other little aspects of fitting out this interior. Now, the first of that is to cut out a floor, which I have already done, and essentially you're measuring the width and the length, cutting a piece of card. In my case, I've done out to size, and just ensuring a good tight fit. The tighter the fit, the better, because it will help. See, there's a slight bow just in the back wall there. It will just help to push that out, and that's still also happening at the top. But again, once we get the roof and that sorted later on, that should rectify that too. So if I get this floor out a second, there is one other aspect that I want to do. So one of the first things we want to do is to look at the lever frame, basically the base of the lever frame, and inserting it into the floor. One of the things I don't particularly like about the Ratio kits is that whenever it's sat on the ground, it does look a little bit chunky. And in actual fact, in many cases, the lever frame, if I can get this into shot, tends to be a lot more flush with the floor. It's focusing on my thumb more than the frame, but hopefully you get the idea. So what we want to do is to cut out a section of this floor in order that we can insert that into. And it's also the reason, if you remember way back to the first episode, that I had said about central support not bringing it right up to the level of where the floor would be, and that was essentially to allow the chunky bit of this frame to sit into the floor. So it's very much a simple case of trying to work out where in actual fact it's going to be positioned on the signal box. It's going to be off center. The door is here. In this section here, we're going to build in a little section of wall which will represent the toilet, and therefore we need to keep the lever frame over towards the right hand side, so we'll do it about there. I also need to make sure it's brought in far enough from the back wall in order that the gantry table in behind with all the bells and whistles on it can be positioned too. Now on this particular box, the lever frame, rather than sitting on the front side near the windows, was on the back wall, so that's why I am positioning it here. So we'll take that and we'll run our pencil. Well, certainly what I'll do is I'll mark the ends anyway as to where it'll be, and then I can measure correctly using a set of calipers the width of this here, and we can get an accurate cutout for this here hole. Okay, hopefully I have measured this correctly and it should be a nice tight fit. It measures approximately 56 millimeters by 9.5 millimeters, and if I just encourage that into the little opening, hopefully you can see just even from that there, that's going to look an awful lot better. So all I need to do now is to run a little bit of Roket card glue around the edges of that. We'll insert that into place. Once that's dried, I'm going to give the floor and the frame base a coat of matte primer, grey matte primer. I can then mask this area off and give the actual base of this more of a dark grey sort of metallic look to it, which would be more in keeping with how it looks, but the matte grey primer will suit perfectly as the covering for our floor. So we'll do that and we'll move on to the next stage. With the floor now primed and the lever frame base all painted up, I'm ready to glue that into place within the box. Obviously the furniture still all needs to go in, plus the frames themselves, but I think I'll do that afterwards because I'd like to be able to move on with the rest of the stuff while that other stuff is getting painted. And that's essentially just going to be a wee drop of Roket card glue run around the edges of the building. Should be enough to keep it all in place. Let's take a look at the little toilet cubicle that we want to make. And what I've done here is basically I've cut out a couple of pieces of card. These are measuring 20 millimeters in length and 30 in height. Now it won't come right to the roof of the building, but we don't want that because we need this recess here to allow our roof to sit right nice and flush in with the building itself, and it also will help support the edges from bowing in. So I've taken two of these, and on the back side of it, hopefully you can see there's a little pencil line, and that is marking where another 10mm wide piece will be glued to. So I'm going to glue that with the Roket card glue along that line. And then after that, same principle as we did with the external doors, we will then add a door onto the front of that using strips of plasticard and the 0.8mm Plastruct square rod to create our frame round our door. And this is what I've done with it so far. I'm not taking it right to the top. It's just too tall really to be that tall, so it's 27 millimeters in height, the bottom of the frame. This does create a recess here, but with another strip of plasticard we can cut a little section out to put over the top. This is only an offcut, so it's a bit untidy looking, but you can cut a little section out of the top, which will then give the impression that the wee bit of the wall above the door sits forward of that door. So we need to glue these together, and then once glued I can pop that into place in the building. Now with the toilet cubicle in, the door can now be glued into place, assuming you have it painted. I haven't done so yet, so I will add that afterwards. Moving on, before I paint this here, moving on, the only other thing I want to do with the interior of the building is to clean up the walls a little bit. They're a little bit scuffed and marked from all the different painting projects and that have gone on, and the most simple method of doing this is just taking some plain white paper, and I'm going to apply some Roket card glue along the back edge of the paper, and then we can glue those into place, and it'll just sort of crispen up the interior of it. Means when you are looking through the front windows that it won't just look as untidy. And I'll repeat that process for the two side and the front walls too. Okay, so the cubicle's now done, and you would probably want to either paint the inside of this in black just to blank out what you can see through the window, or alternatively you could just glue a little bit of tissue paper or tracing paper onto that glazing just to blur it out. Moving on then, I have already added a little bit of mount board to this door to close it. It is to be in the closed position, and we need to make the door for this. Now we're going to follow more or less the same procedure as we did for the other exterior doors, but I want to just make this one slightly different as it is a more of a feature door. So I've cut out the plain plastic card, and that's just the wee 1/2 mil stuff that we've been using on the doors beneath. To that, I want to add strips round the edge. Now this is about 2.5 millimeter plastic strip, and we're going to glue it down both sides, similar as to what we had done with the frame, but this is just to create a relief effect to the door. So if I glue that into place first, and then hopefully you'll be able to understand better what I'm trying to create here. So we'll follow the same way as I did it the last time. We'll put it up against a steel rule, and then I'll add a wee drop of plastic weld. Now with that done, we are going to then add a 2 millimeter strip along the top, the bottom and in the center, and that's just going to give us a nice relief to this door. And then after we've done that, we will then add the 0.8 millimeter square rod round the edge of it to create the door frame. Okay, and that's our door, and I just need to trim this end off here. Now I'll let that glue dry properly before sanding it back and checking to fit, but you can just see the effect that it has by adding those extra little layers into it, and it'll make a nice feature of this main door here. Now you could go a step further if you wished, and you could cut out the top section here and create a window. In actual fact, I might well do that. Yeah, I will. I'll just take the craft blade, and once all the glue's gone off, we'll cut round this section here and cut that out completely, and I think that'll add an extra layer of detail. No, in actual fact I won't. If you were leaving your door open, it would make more sense to do that. Really, with this backing card on here, it's not going to look right. The only alternative really is to remove that card altogether, so you can actually see through into the box. So that would be an option for you. Okay, stop gibbering, we'll get on to the next stage. Other than fitting the furniture into the interior, that's more or less it done now. You could add more detail if you wished, but in all honesty, whenever you're viewing it through the glazing, it's going to be very minimal as to what you can see. So let's take a look at the roof. Now there's two ways of doing this roof. Both of them are very simple in actual fact, because it is a flat roof, so we only need the one piece. The back one is straightforward enough, we'll come back to that. I have the dimensions of this roof measured out at 128 millimeters in length by 74 millimeters in width, and that creates quite an overhang on either side, which is nice. So essentially what you need to do is cut out a 2 millimeter thick sheet of plasticard to those dimensions, and that's it, job done, other than obviously painting it. Now I will prime this in advance and then paint it, but if you weren't wishing to have the interior or the roof as a removable item, you would just paint it and glue it into place. But I want to keep the roof removable. It may well be that the modeler would like to add lights into it at some date in the future, so having it as a removable roof really does help. So for that, then what we need to do is cut out another piece of plastic card, the length and width of the opening here in the roof, and I'm using 1 millimeter thick plastic card, and that's been cut to allow just a slight tolerance that whenever you set it in, it just should drop down into place. Now on the reverse of your 2mm thick card, you need to take the measurements of this against this and subtract the difference. In my case, what it ends up is that on the longer sides, you need to come in 8.5mm on each end and 9mm on the sides, in order that you have a marking in which then you can basically just set your plastic card into the center of that and glue it into place. And what it will do is create a little guide so that whenever you go to lift your roof on or off, this creates that edge just to slot it down into place. Now the 2mm plastic card is fairly level and straight, but if you do find that you have any minimal warping on it, it may be necessary, once you have this in place, would be to place, say, some of the Plastruct girders along this section here, just to help straighten it out. But hopefully it won't come to that. It may well be that just a slight bending of your plastic card with your hands will help to get it nice and flat again. So I'm going to glue this into place. We will prime it in Halford's grey primer, and then I'll get a touch of paint onto it. And while I'm doing that, I will also cut out a section for this. In terms of that one there, I don't need to go down the route of the 1mm plastic card. It will just be the 2mm cut to the correct dimensions, which in the case of the back there, I think overhangs just ever so slightly by about 2 or 3mm on each of the two sides and on the reverse. Now hopefully you got a sense of the method that I was using to create the effect on this roof. Look, at the end of the day, I don't honestly know if it is accurate in any way whatsoever, but I do think it gives a nice finish. Bottom line is, you can't see onto the roof from any of the photographs that I've got, so we just have to sort of work with, you know, within the realms of possibility. But the rear roof is now glued on, the front one isn't, and if I remove it, you will see then that I have glued in the fittings for the interior. Now I haven't gone mad on this. If you're viewing it from within through the glazing, you're not going to see an awful lot of it, but it does give the effect that there is something there. With regards to the control bench along the back, I did have to cut down the height of the legs to ensure that it fit in under the roof. Essentially, where the mimic panel would be up on the board, that wouldn't have sat in place. It would have sat high of the roof, but it does look quite well now that it's finished. And certainly from a viewer sitting looking at this particular layout, you will be able to see that the box is furnished. Okay, now I think we're going to have to draw a line there, so unfortunately we've got one more video to go on this, but the next one will definitely finish it. I need to fit the staircase to the side here. There's a couple of little details that I just want to add. There's a guttering to go down on this side here, and there's just some sort of pipe work from electrical trunking that I'd like to put onto it, just to enhance the look of the building a little bit more. So we'll do all of that next time round. Until then, thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you again soon. Bye bye now.